If you were suddenly taking out the most experienced folks at Justice or at the FBI, how does that make us stronger? And what he's saying is every FBI agent that somehow touched the January 6th investigation, that was a comprehensive investigation. I've been told there were almost half of all the FBI agents at least had some involvement. Remember, this was a case that was taken up against these rioters all across the country. If you're suddenly going to get rid of all of those, that could be thousands.
Yeah.
What does that mean for our cybersecurity? What does it mean for our trafficking and stop against fentanyl and other drugs? What does it mean in terms of, serious crime investigations? This would be devastating.
Frank Figliuzzi, the textbook definition of the decapitation of an agency is to remove all of its leaders. Chris Wray resigned and Patel isn't confirmed. Is the FBI right now functionally decapitated?
Yeah, every single executive assistant director is gone. Yes. And so, it's funny what's happening now. There's always been this tension between headquarters and the field, right? And there are certain career seasoned, grizzled agents who say, I'll never serve at headquarters. I don't want that. I don't need them. Well, guess what? Now here's the possibility of 5,000 or 6,000 FBI agents in the field being dismissed for simply doing their job and doing it well enough to convict 1,500 people who breached the Capitol and assaulted police officers. Now there's a wake-up call, right? And everybody is one. If Donald Trump wanted to just totally disrupt the FBI and totally prevent them from doing their mission, he has united them. When you have the head of the biggest office in the country, New York, saying, we're digging in, we're in a fight now, the acting director, who, by the way, was a hostage rescue team commander, you don't mess with him. He kicks indoors for a living. And so they've got this all wrong. And this is an agency where, you know what agents did in the last few weeks? Just the last few weeks, they captured 2 top 10 fugitives. That's never happened before. In just about a week, they did that. They were at the bottom of the Potomac River looking for parts in the D.C. air crash. They were in Philadelphia for that medevac plane crash. They were picking up bits and pieces of evidence in Bourbon Street in New Orleans on New Year's Day. That's what they do, on top of losing some homes. FBI employees have lost their homes to fire in California in just the last 30 days. And this now comes to them? Not right.
I guess the reason I like to understand where we are at the moment we're on the air is because it ends up mattering, right? So on January 6th, it's not clear that Trump was functioning as the commander-in-chief, right? We've learned since that it's Pence that's on the phone with the Pentagon ultimately. And right now, with Christopher Wray's resignation, the firing of all top FBI leadership, and Mr. Patel not confirmed, do you agree with Frank's assessment that functionally the FBI is decapitated?
I agree with that. What's not decapitated and what you're seeing is the next level of leadership.
If they're allowed to rise, right?
Well, what I'm saying is the ones who are there now are obeying the law and the facts. And what you're seeing is FBI training, which is we take an oath to the Constitution. You're right that that leadership level has been taken out. In my view, totally illegal, violates the civil service rules and the protections of them. There was no process, there was no cause. If it happens again, same thing. You need cause to remove those people. I want to make sure people understand, I'm old enough to remember the Saturday Night Massacre. And I want people to understand, you might be thinking this is a story just about the FBI. It is not. It is enough that it's about the FBI, but I want to make people understand it is far more egregious than what Nixon tried to do by just removing the special counsel to say, I shouldn't be investigated. This is saying, I am a king. I can disobey all civil service rules. He has the #2 at the Justice Department agreeing. So this is unlike what happened in the Saturday Night Massacre, where the Justice Department was saying, fire me because I'm not doing something that's illegal. Here, where you're seeing that pushback, that allegiance to the Constitution and to the American people, is that next layer
in the
of
field office.
In the field offices around the country. Those people are doing their duty to their oath of office, to the Constitution. It's hard to see this as anything more than like playing out a morality play of like pure patriotism against lawlessness on the part of the Justice Department.
I guess the disconnect, though, is every one of the FBI field offices is led by a special agent in charge, and every one of those field offices is in a state where they have 2 senators. Where is the legislative branch?
The legislative branch needs to obviously wake up, and it's not just out of loyalty to the FBI, it's out of any sense of their own oaths of office. We talked about this when we had Cassidy Hutchinson obeying her obligation to the rule of law, and we were saying she showed more gumption than a whole host of other people. I would hope that Lisa Murkowski, Senator Murkowski, could take what she is seeing at the FBI to convince her colleagues to do the right thing. And one of the right things to do, of many, is to make sure that they ask Pam Bondi and Kash Patel the question that you just asked. About where are they and what are they going to do about this. They have not been asked that. Everything that we've seen over the weekend is new. Kash Patel gave pretty inconsistent description of his position. They need to be under oath answering this. It is going to be, it'll show complete complicity if there aren't 4 Republican senators to go along with at least having a real, as opposed to a sort of puppet show of a confirmation hearing. It's
just amazing in the 24 years since 9/11 that you've got Republicans totally AWOL on domestic terrorism, foreign terrorism, homeland security. Glenn Thrush, I raised the question about a plot because one of the things we learned after January 6th is that it was the Norfolk field office that had some chatter about white supremacist groups. And it's Donald Trump's last handpicked FBI director who replaced Comey after he fired him, who testified under oath in 2020 that by far the biggest threat to the country is domestic violent extremism. And in the bucket of domestic violent extremism, by far the biggest threat is white supremacist violent extremism. What is the impact on pursuing what Christopher Wray, long associated with conservative politics, described as the gravest threat in a bureau that's been chilled, to your point, irreparably?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I can't speak for the volition of individual agents who could act responsibly, but there appears to be from the top, and again, this emanates from the White House. One of the first executive orders the president signed was on DEI, and he appeared willing to shut down the entire government. A sort of a self-inflicted government shutdown with the OMB memo based on DEI stuff. But I think the point that folks are making about the agents sort of rising up. This is a really fundamental political point. Let's just switch over to the political argument here, right? Trump ran on law and order. During Bondi's hearing, she brushed aside a lot of these questions having to deal with the issue of governance and whether or not she'd be independent by saying, let's stop crimes. Kash Patel, over and over again, said he kept using rapes, the rise in rapes as an example, that as FBI director, he wanted to attack that. At the same time, Patel talked about recent polling that showed 40% of the American people support the FBI, run down to its lowest level in years, in part because Republicans have attacked the Bureau relentlessly since the Trump investigations. But there's a difference between not liking the bureaucracy and not liking the FBI leadership and going after FBI agents who the public views as frontline cops. Big difference. Going after the bosses, fine. Going after the institution, which has had a checkered history since J. Edgar Hoover, okay. You start going after FBI agents like the head of the New York field office, who are decorated Marines, who have gone on raids, risking their lives, gun in hand, hostage rescues, you're talking about something else. This could be a political disaster for Trump. And the other thing about it is, as you start cutting body counts, as you start removing people from positions, example, as Ryan talked about, those January 6 prosecutors. A dozen of them were to be assigned to Superior Court in D.C. to deal with misdemeanor cases. And Trump ran in part on the crime wave in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So you're going from sort of going after institutions to going after cops on the street. And we haven't even talked about the pardon of all those people who'd committed violence against law enforcement. This is a very politically dangerous move for the president to be making.